Hello, good people, and welcome to the HeavenEarth Church Podcast. It's the podcast where we look to share a connection about a church whose vision is to make a lasting impact in our community. And a part of what we do is get to know the folks who are part of the Heaven and Earth Church community. And we're really pleased to have as our guest today on the, my name is Brad Miller, one of the producers of the podcast, but our guests today are Justin and Rachel Robling, who come to us as a part of the church family here. Justin and Justin, let's just start with you. What's hometown for you?
Hometown is actually Whiteland, Indiana.
Awesome.
I am in hometown. I actually grew up right across the street from here. I'm
Okay. Well, tell me about something in that home life. What was kind of interesting? Like, tell me about a room in your house, maybe that was not your bedroom, but someplace else in the house that was a place that you enjoyed, or the place that was kind of a warm feeling for you.
I would say it's probably the backyard. I've always loved sports. I had a basketball goal out there. I had a soccer goal, baseball, just anything and everything. I spent the entire day until my parents drove me in, just hanging out outside playing sports.
Awesome. Rachel, let's chat with you for a second. Tell us about you. What's hometown for you?
And born and raised. I lived in Indy, and then we lived in Greenwood for a while, and then we moved back to Whiteland.
So. Awesome. You're very good. Well, tell me about some growing up, some memorable either pet or something about growing up in Bargersville that was unique for you. Maybe about a pet or something like that.
It's going to be a pet.
It's going to be a pet. I had a dog, Corey, and we had the dog, and she had puppies, and my mom told me I wasn't going to be able to keep it. I was probably 10. Told me I wasn't going to be able to keep a dog, and I took her and let her sleep in bed with me, and so my mom caved, and I kept that dog. She was 19 when she passed.
Wow.
Yeah. So she was through everything for me.
Wow.
So yeah, I was very lucky.
Part of your life growing up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, how did you two come to get to know each other and end up getting married?
I think that was just from my sister's husband used to have like poker parties, and you started coming, and I was there.
Monday night poker every Monday night.
Yeah. So we met, and that was 19 years ago. We've been together 19, married 11 years, been together 19.
I'm just in about a week we've been knowing each other, and it's a sister.
There you are. I understand pets are a big part of your life, your home life right now. So tell me about how that comes about. I mean, tell me about the pets in your life.
He never met Corey, but then after Corey passed, I got another little dog, Penelope, and she lived to be 18 too. So she was with us.
Yes.
She was like 2 when you met her.
Yes.
And so I had Chihuahuas for a very long time, and then he got a Chihuahua. So at one point we had 3 Chihuahuas, a couple cats, and now we have a very large dog. He's right at 100
pounds now. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of dogs.
Yeah, that is a lot of dogs.
Great Dane, Bloodhound, Ridgeback. We don't exactly know. He's just a big mutt.
It's a big, huge dog.
She's like a Boston French Bulldog kind of mix. She's a muddy little dog too.
So that's part of the joy of your life. Sounds like
the joy. Yeah. Hey, the big dog's name is Buddha, just because he just lays. He's very still.
There you go. Well, tell me a bit about what do you do? What kind of career things you have, Justin? What kind of things you do?
California Closets. I am a programmer and a product manager. So I take the designs and that we get from the designers, and I make it to where it's actually applicable, so we can make it in shop. So I take I try to decipher like what they give, and create like a bomb or a cut sheet, and just try to figure out any sort of issues. Just make it work, basically.
Yeah. So you're not actually designing closets as such, but you are doing the.
Yes, more just like the back end.
The back end.
I have to feed all the programs to the machines, make sure.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. All right. Good for you, Rachel. How about you? What kind of career do you have?
Insurance. I work at home. I have been home 16 years.
Something like that.
Yeah. So
Wow.
we had an office in Indy that closed. So they moved some of us home. So that's why I've worked from home for so long.
Good.
But now our whole, after 2020, our whole
Right.
office is at home. So
Good.
it's nice. I have a lot of Teams meetings, but I'm an onboarding rep. So I bring agents into our small business service center.
There you go.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in any of the commercials for that company. There you go. Tell me a little bit about any kind of, I don't know, church or religious background that you may have had before you started getting connected with HeavenEarth Church, but if at all.
Yeah.
Rachel, start with you.
Yeah. I actually grew up in church. My family still goes to the same church that I grew up in. Wonderful church. It just, sometimes at different seasons, you just want something else. And I probably stopped going in high school and then did not regularly pick it back up until probably 2015. And we've been to several different churches, I guess, through that time frame. And again, wonderful churches, just for whatever reason, we were just looking for something else and then landed here. And he asked me earlier, and I want to say it was 2020.
Yeah. Well, we'll come to that part of the story in just a second. Just a little bit of background on you, Justin. Maybe any church background growing up or anything else along the line.
Yeah, we always went to church as well. We always went to Franklin Church of Christ growing up, just right down the street on 31. My dad always sung probably a few times a month, and just a great church. I always felt more of like an obligation. So to Rachel's point, I was kind of the same way, and I just always had a lot more questions, and everything was just a little bit more absolute in the way that I grew up with religion. So we're just constantly.
Well, tell me how that came about then. It sounded like you were kind of actively searching for a church in many ways. So how'd you first hear about HeavenEarth Church? And then what led you to kind of come and check it out initially?
It was Dave that originally told us about, we'd seen him at, I think, a funeral.
Dave McMillan was one of my guidance counselors while in high school, and just a stellar guy. We saw him at a family member's funeral, and he actually invited us to church here and told us that he's been taking his mother-in-law, and it's just a really great place.
Yeah, so we checked it out online and gave it a shot.
Yeah. And you said that was in the neighborhood of 2021. So tell me then, you checked it out and you gave it a shot. So tell me a little bit about some of those initial experiences. The first time or two you were here, what kind of experience did you have? And then kind of around that, what kind of conversation did you two have after that?
Yeah, well, we watched it online. And at the time, it was a lot smaller. And Ross was doing a lot of the songs and everything himself. Remember, he was just up there. It was like him and a garage or him and a guitar.
Yes.
And I was like, I just want to check it out. And when we came in, Ashley, who used to be on staff here, immediately came up to us and welcomed us. And well, of course, we saw Dave. Mm-hmm. And just the people were just really friendly. And, we'd been to some churches before that were very small and close knit. And it was a little hard to break in and, to kind of, everyone had their clique that they would talk to each morning. So it was refreshing that there was a lot of people that were willing to speak to us and that made it a point to speak to us.
Yeah, because we also have been to a few big churches as well. And it's just the opposite. You almost felt like you weren't even noticed. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but we're just looking for somewhere right in the middle.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you were actively searching. So you're kind of in an evaluation period, as it were. So it sounds like you took a little bit of time to kind of get connected. So tell me about that searching period. What I mean by that is, I assume that maybe you came and you left, maybe you went to other churches, whatever. But what brought you back after that initial interest here?
Gosh, I think, I really like just the conversation. really, that I'd never been to any place where you could just like speak, like how Ross asks questions and you can just speak. So that always brought me back. And I don't think we went to any place else since
Okay.
we came here.
No.
Okay.
We were just kind of more sporadic in going. It wasn't just, our mission to go to church on Sunday. Like it just, if we got up in time, we went, so we were just a little bit more sporadic. And I think like last year is when we kind of really decided that we were going to really make it a priority.
Okay. Well, let's go there.
Yeah.
What was that pivotal moment? What was that aha moment that kind of made it move from kind of a checking it out period or kind of a sporadic, as you said, Rachel, to being more committed? So what was there a moment, or was there kind of tell me about that experience. What led you to that?
I want to say we hadn't been in like 2 weeks, I remember. And it was right around Christmas or right before. And Ross reached out and asked us if we wanted to light one of the candles. And so we did. And then, I mean, it was just that, the church is really good about reaching out. And I just feel like that at that time, we weren't putting in the effort that we needed to. And Ross reaching out and kind of, pulling us in really was a big step.
Yeah.
So.
And Justin, since then, I understand you took a step forward in leadership in the church. So tell me about how that evolved for you.
Yes. So I've always just really enjoyed learning, and I've been in leadership positions, and I really love John Maxwell. That's who I look up to the most, probably. And his whole big thing is just adding value to people, and that's kind of my mission. I just want to add value to people. A lot of people do not feel seen, heard, valued, or anything like that. They never have. So that's my mission. And so someone nominated me for the board, and a lot of discussion and prayer, I decided it was something that I wanted to take on.
Very good. So we now have got you. You've made a commitment to be part of the church, and you've stepped up in various areas of your. And what are some of the areas you're involved with, then, Rachel, that you're involved with the church?
I really like the hospitality portion of it. I like greeting and, bringing in the treats and getting the coffee ready. And we live so close. It's nice to get in early. And so that's really what I enjoy. I know that was a big thing for me, like with Ashley. And so when she left her position, I really just didn't want that to kind of fall away and, we lose that connection. So not that I am anywhere near what Ashley was and how hospitable she always was, but I really try to greet everybody.
Tell me about a time here in the life of the church where you kind of had a God moment, where you saw there's something that's going on here that's a little bigger than kind of connecting kind of interpersonally and things like that, feel good about the people, the welcoming and all that people gave to you and that you give to others. But with a time when you kind of think, this is a little bigger than that. This is a God thing. Do you have a moment like that?
I think it was probably, Ross did a class, the Shaped by God through Scripture last year. It was during Lent. And it was right after we'd really committed to, coming every Sunday. And that was probably our first time really getting to know everybody in the church. And I had done, at the same time they opened up a book club, and I did that as well. So it was really like connecting and just being around people that I felt the same way I did. And it wasn't, I think like you'd said with church earlier, it wasn't so absolute. There was questions, and it was okay to have questions.
Yeah.
It wasn't, Ross doesn't claim to know everything, so I like.
Yeah. How would you, Justin, do you have any kind of God moment that you've experienced here?
I would say doing kids' church and asking the kids questions about Jesus and God, and then sometimes knowing more than you, or having just a different perspective. I feel like I see God a lot when I'm back there with the kids.
Awesome. Let me kind of take a little different twist on this conversation here for a second, Justin and Rachel. You made the journey, as it were, from checking out the church to getting committed to the church and having these God moments. As getting to know other people, kind of being part of the hospitality team, now part of the leadership, why do you think people are not only connecting, why do people connect with HeavenEarth Church, but why are they staying? Why would people stay? Not only your experience, what are you observing from others?
I think it's the community.
Community, it's very inclusive. I feel like you can come exactly as you are with all the questions that you have, and be greeted with nothing but open arms.
I also feel like it's a church, and I haven't always felt like this in the other churches I've been to, that I know I can invite anybody.
Okay.
Doesn't matter what they believe, just
What they
anything.
look like.
It doesn't matter. I can invite them here, and I know they're going to be greeted and welcomed like anybody else.
Has that happened?
We haven't invited anyone. We've put the
We've
invitation.
invited.
Yeah.
No one's taken us up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're waiting.
Well, that's cool, because that's a part of what we're talking about here, is being a church that is not only welcoming, but also invitational, and to be welcome here, because it's, the mission statement of the church is to make a lasting impact on our community here. What does that mean to you? Let's just start with you. What does that mission statement mean to you, Rachel?
I think it just means, and that's why we had never been to a church in our, literally in our community. And so I think that was a big pull for us to want to check out this church, that it was in Whiteland and we live here, and just to be a part of a church that, they give away vegetables that they grow in the garden, and just the community partners with the Resources of Hope, and the one today, the Upstream. So I just like that it's so, just so inclusive, and, they care about the bigger issues that are affecting.
How would you add to that, Justin, or would you?
That's so we do have a heart for certain things, for recovery, for homeless children, for the Upstream, which is the anti suicide prevention. It's just very meaningful, and a lot of people need it, especially in today's day and age, with just all the hate that's out there.
Yeah.
So I really love that we do that kind of stuff.
One of the kind of a follow-up to that, one of the taglines, as we're models of the church, is something to the effect of, if you think you don't fit in church, you fit in here.
Yeah.
Is that true? And if so, how is that true?
I think the churches I have been to, they've always been it's very structured, very, and the people that I've met have, they know a lot of scripture, and, they can recite it. And that's always a little overwhelming to me, because I'm not that type of person. Like, I read the scriptures. I'm just not good with the memorization, and can pull them, I can paraphrase, but not, word for word. So it doesn't matter what level you're at in your spiritual journey. I feel like here, like, you can go deeper if you want to, but if you want to, kind of ease in, you can do it that way too.
Let me ask you the same question, Justin, with this take. Have you seen situations where it appeared that people were here who may not have fit in other experiences you may have had, or where some life change happened in that regard? Tell me about any experience you might have had along that line.
Where's my next?
Well, the model was that, if you think you don't fit in church, you fit in here. I'm just curious if you've seen that type of thing played out. Rachel says she thinks that's true. I want to see if you've seen that manifested here in some way or another.
I believe it's true, because I believe it's happened to me.
Okay.
I've always said, and this might be the most controversial thing, maybe, but I've always thought that I followed a different Jesus than other people did, and I really believe it, because I feel like the Jesus that we talk about here is different than the Jesus that's always blasted out. So I personally feel like that.
So let's just talk about that for just a second. A different Jesus. Do you think that this different Jesus that is you've experienced it, and if I'm picking up what you're saying here, you've experienced your understanding of Jesus in this church a little more so than maybe you've experienced in other experiences you've had in life. Is that a fair statement to make? So do you think this different Jesus is a Jesus who can be approachable to people who are, for lack of a better term, people who feel like they don't fit in?
I do. I actually think that's a really great way to put it. You articulated it a lot better than I could.
I think saying a different Jesus is a pretty darn good way of putting it there. Yeah, yourself. So having said that, what would you say, Justin, speak to you first. What would you say to that person who may be kind of like you were, getting online and checking out HeavenEarth Church, and maybe seeing this podcast or this video of you and Rachel here? What would you say to that person who may be just checking things out?
I would say, come on by. We'd so love to have you. Come by and get some coffee, some donuts. Stick around for a great conversation, great music, and just you're very welcome.
Awesome. Let's bring it around to one more thing here. And Rachel, I ask you, you've mentioned a couple of times about the conversations being important, and that's kind of the framework that the messages are done. How important is this ongoing conversation with you, or Pastor Ross's way he does messages? Tell me about the importance of conversation.
I like it. I mean, I'm not, and I've been coming here, and I know that can be off-putting to people to think that they'd have to answer a question. And I'm here to say, I think I've maybe answered one time. Like I've answered, so it is very, still very new to me, but I do love to hear other people's perspectives. I just love to hear, and the kids, sometimes when they speak up too, it's just, it puts a spin on it. I think Brandon said something today. He always says something that I never even thought about. So I just love, not just hearing from one person, but, hearing that, and, it's probably stirring the same thing in me, and I can hear it in other people too.
Awesome.
And even if we don't speak up necessarily during the service, though, it creates a space to unpack it on the way home, or once we get home, or later on that day, or later on in the week. So I think it's very important.
But the conversations don't only have to be kind of during the message time. It could be what happens after the worship experience, or on the way home between you two, or your friends and neighbors or coworkers, this type of thing. That can be a part of that conversation. And I think that's part of what we're saying here as a part of this being a church that is for people who may not fit in church. They can be a part of an ongoing conversation. You don't have to jump in and be, like a biblical scholar right off the bat or whatever, that kind of thing. So very good. Well, let's just leave it with this. I'll give you both of you just one more chance. What would you thoughts you just want to share about your life in the church or anything else? Here, Rachel, we'll start with you.
Gosh, I think we're both introverts at heart. We can be extroverted if we need to be. And so coming to a new church, it is very hard to make those connections, especially as adults, and I would encourage anyone who wants to make those connections, or, come to church and wants to feel that bond, to just jump in and serving in any type of way, because that is how I really have felt grounded and connected with this church.
Awesome.
Is just from serving. And, it really, especially greeting, because you get to say hello to everybody. So you don't just have to walk up to people and say hello. So that's been probably my best part.
That's awesome. Well, Justin will give you the final word here. What would any comment you want to make about your the life of the church and your connection to it?
I'm just saying that I'm just so grateful for this church. I really do feel like that it has just kind of turned up my faith, and just it's helped me be very intentional, and us be very intentional about just our relationship with Jesus, and just a wonderful spot.
Well, I just want to say thank you for sharing from your heart, both of you, and for being a part of the HeavenEarth Church, part of HeavenEarth Church, and being our guest here on the HeavenEarth Church Podcast. And we thank you for joining us here on the HeavenEarth Church Podcast. I'm one of the producers of the podcast, Brad Miller. And we hope that you'll connect up with us and continue the conversation at a church which engages in this and looks to make a lasting impact in our community. You can find the church at HeavenEarthChurch.org.